Hello again and welcome to another 140k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I'd like to say a big thank you to Justin Krizak for sending in some awesome pictures of the Quantico 75th Rifleman 1st Platoon. I have been following Justin's painting work on the bolter and chainsword for a while now. It's one of the painting logs that I most look forward to being updated because I just love the colour scheme, love the guardsman. I also love the fact that he is doing the Mordian glory thing and going for 200 to 300 infantry in his army. So absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sending these pictures in. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they want me to use in my videos, please post them on my Facebook page or email them to me at mordianglorytv@gmail.com. Now, one thing to mention on the video, on the pictures, guys, I'll be getting a few questions and a few comments, people saying, why haven't you used my pictures, blah, blah, blah. I do try and use every single picture, and when I saw this popping up, I was like, this is weird. Why are people thinking that I'm not using their pictures? Turns out that Facebook is just a terrible website, and it doesn't actually show me every post that goes on my page unless I click a button, basically. So I will be trying to go through the backlog. So if I haven't used your pictures, don't think it's because I didn't like them or anything. It's simply because, honestly, I don't normally point the finger. Bad workman blames his tools, right? But honestly, it was just, they were being hidden from me. So I don't know if there's some dark mechanicus over at the old Facebook HQ or something. I don't know. But yeah, bit of an old technical problem there, guys. So I will be going back and we're trying to use as many of them as possible. If I don't use your pictures and you posted them a few weeks ago, please repost them and I will try and use them or email them in to me. I can't miss them if you email them in to me. So just a little bit of admin there, guys. But without further ado, let's crack on with today's video. So what I want to talk about, guys, is a bit of a weird topic, bit of a controversial one, you might say, but I'm going to throw something out there which at first might sound like madness. And maybe as I go on and try and explain myself, it will continue to sound like madness. But I hope, but I hope that it begins to make sense. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say is the big thing. All right, Morning Glory, stop fluffing it up. What the hell are you trying to tell us? I'm glad that Space Marines are not my primary faction. I am really glad that I am not a Space Marine player. What? Why? How could you say those things? I know, it's crazy, right? But, you might be saying, but Morning Glory, they get all the best stuff. They're always getting the best updates. They're always getting the best models. They're always just on the front lines getting all the best shit. Like, why wouldn't you want that? And it's like, okay, humble listener. Hear me out. First thing is that I'm just going to say it. There's so many updates going out there for Marines at the moment. There's so many rules. There's so many things that it's actually just a little wearing. It is like, and this is not a salty video. I'm not complaining about them getting all those updates or anything like that. You go for it kind of thing. I'm just saying, as an everyday, normal, regular guy, I would struggle. I do struggle. I have not bothered to keep all the updates in my head for my Black Templars. Simple matter of the fact is, I don't have the time. I have a job and a house, and I've got the gimp in the dungeon. I just don't have, between all those things, I don't really have time to, be keeping up with the amount of updates that the newer factions, especially Marines, have been getting. So I've been, during, in the UK, the tiers have been going up and down. Sometimes, tiers for lockdown. Sometimes you can see people, sometimes you can't. It's very fluidic at the moment. And in the occasional gaps where it's been allowed to, have someone over in your garden or have go over to someone else's garden and get a game in or something like that. I've had a few games, or at the very least, I've just been chatting away to various people that are into the hobby as much as I am. And one of the things is that we were playing Guard versus like the new Marines, and it was like my opponent was like, God, if you know, my post like, God, it feels weird going back to using Guard now. Like after using Marines for a bit, it feels weird. Like it's just so. You can really feel like, you know, how left behind the Guard have been. And I said to him, well, actually, you know what? What it says to me is it just shows how complicated all the other factions have got. There's two ways of looking at this. You know, when you're a Marine player, you've got to remember your chat tactics, your super tactics. You've got to remember your specific, you know, psychic awakening, or in this, you know, or codex. You've got all the new rules, but not all your rules are in one book. Some of them are in various different places. Like, not everything is just in one place. There's like 10 different books that you have, or 10 different sources I should have, 10 different things going on, and you know, it's very easy to slip up and make mistakes, or quite simply, not be using the right stratagems at the right time. You know, if you're not, let's say you get all your rules right, but it's very easy for you to not to use that key stratagem, that key time, not to remember that thing that you can do at that point. You know, and then later you're kicking yourself like, I got that wrong and I feel bad because maybe it helped me win the game, or I could have won the game, but I forgot that this thing was going on. It's like, it's just, there's too much going on. And so when you're constant, you know, when you play Guard, or when you play pretty much like, you know, for example, my brother uses Dark Elder a lot. One of my closest friends uses, you know, main arm uses Silence. He's been on the channel a few times. He's done a few Silence Genestealer Cult battles. When you play with those armies or against those armies, it's just like putting on a comfy pair of slippers. Because you know what? When I played the Dark Elder at the end of 8th edition, and when I played them in 9th edition, you know, a year apart, 6 months apart, whatever it is, they've not changed at all. They run just the same, absolutely fine. A few points might have changed. The army might have got a little smaller, but that's it, really. Last time I played Marines versus the last, you know, time played Marines a year ago versus a time against playing Marines now, it's totally different. You know, a year ago, you had, you know, Raven Guard, Centurions, deep striking out of so-and-so and infiltrating and whatnot. Now you've got people who can't, you know, some units are core, some units aren't core, some speak, you know, some of this, some of that. It's like totally different. The army plays totally differently, and that's a year apart. The way my Guard have worked from the beginning of the hard reset, of the great reset, at the beginning of 8th edition, even like, you know, they've barely changed from the index. You know, they've had a few changes along the way, but by and large, the Guard Codex that you pick up today is the same, will play the same as the one that if you picked up 3 years ago. Nothing's changed. It's nice. Like, when we talk about Guard tactics on this channel, we never talk about how this unit has changed in this way and blah, blah, blah. Not really. What we tend to talk about is the enemies that we face. You know, how this unit is now, how it works in the new edition versus the new meta. The unit itself hasn't changed. The options haven't changed. The world around it has changed. So that's why, you know, sometimes I'll redo a video on like you know, an infantry squad or a Baneblade or a Lehman Russ or a Chimera. I'll redo a video on this unit and you'll be like, but Morning Glory, we've always talked about this. Yeah, the unit itself, we're not talking about the unit itself anymore. We're talking about the meta. The unit hasn't changed. The meta has changed. And it's the same thing, and this happens a lot, generally speaking, in 40k, but especially with Marines. I think they've had 3 codexes in like 2 years, something crazy. They have definitely had, I don't know the exact time period, but they have had 3 codexes in the time that we have had 1. And you know what? I'm glad that we've only had 1. It means that Guard players, the Guard community, we're settled. When I talk about something, it's not some alien thing, it's not this new rule that you've got to learn. It's just pointing you in a direction, then you can go to your codex and you know that what I'm talking about is still good. You could go back to my 8th edition tactics videos when the codex was dropped and you could listen to those videos, and things, you know, aside from a few point changes, you could take those and you could still get some general ideas. It won't be the most up to date, they'll be a little out of whack. But you know, when I did my series of videos on 8th edition, going through the individual weapon choices available to the Imperial Guard infantry squads. You could take those videos and by and large, they will still give you a good idea now in 9th edition, 3 years later from when I did those videos, 2 or 3 years later. Can't say the same for my Black Templar videos when I was doing my Black Templar Fridays. I know a lot of people say we missed the Black Templar Fridays. It's like, well, I'd have to go out and wrap my head around so much new stuff. If I did a video, I just wouldn't be confident in it being right. I wouldn't be confident in the tactical advice I'd be giving you. You know, say what you want about the Gene Stealer Cult Codex. It's a steaming pile of crap. Okay, it's a gene stealering pile of crap. Okay, and it is well overcomplicated, and it is a mess, a CPU reliant mess. But it hasn't changed. At least it's still consistently shit. You know, at least that allows you to work around some of the issues. You know, my Gene Stealer Cult army of trucks and neophytes hasn't changed between when I picked it up at the beginning of 8th to where I am now, you know, partway through 9th, whatever, we're a year into 9th, 6 months to a year in 9th, I don't know. You know, it's you know, it's not changed that much. And so this is the thing, and obviously we're all going to be getting codex updates at some point in 9th edition. And we'll see. We've had the Marine ones which have had some big changes in, and so same for the Necron ones. But now we're getting into the more obscure factions like Dark Elder are next, I think. And I was surprised that they make too many radical changes in it. That's the one I'm keeping my eye on. If they do, then brace yourselves, because they'll probably beans up the Guard Codex. But the point is like, I don't envy Marine players because they have to constantly wrestle with this ever-changing landscape. Their meta, their thing, just changes in 6 months. Sometimes entire army builds are invalidated in a 6-month period. And you know, if you're a tournament player who doesn't even really buy his armies, you're just swapping. I know a lot of tournament players that don't really own many of their own armies. They just swap armies with other people or borrow armies with other people, so that you'll see one player at one event using the Marine army, you go to the next one, it's the same army being used by a different player because they've just posted it to them and they just use it because they're mates all on Team Scotland or Team Wales or Team England. Did you see that? It's relatively common. I have lent models to people, you know, when Guard Mortars were all the range, I lent models to someone to use in a tournament. You know, I've already done it once, but you know, that's what happens with a lot of these top tier tournament people. They don't buy the army. So when you've got that situation, you don't really care because you've not bought the models. You've not had to build them up to use them. But when you're a player like myself, one of the big things that has been seriously influencing where I go with my new armies, where I went with what I thought was a safe choice with the Krieg, but that got invalidated 6 months later. That burnt me. My whole Krieg army that I had built and commission painted got invalidated. I got to use it for 1 battle report and 3 battles in total by the time I built it and had it painted. That's because they messed with the Forge World book that hadn't been messed with for 6 months. Well, for how many years? So when I'm choosing armies for the secret project that I've got still ongoing, guys, which I will reveal in a battle report, but I won't reveal before then. And you know, now with my Orc army that I'm working on for Christmas as well, which just isn't a secret project, it's just fun. Those armies that I've chosen them because I don't expect them to change. They're kind of addition proof. You can sort of collect anything with Orcs, and some things will be strong and some things will be weak, but by and large, Orcs will always function the same way. You know, charge forward, give them some Daka, give them some Chopper. Easy peasy. It's the same with the armies that I'm choosing now. So when I'm choosing an army now, I'm choosing one that I think will still be the same way in 6 months to a year's time. Because I need the time to build up the army, to lovingly paint it, and then put it onto the table. And when you've got an army like Marines, which is updating all the time. You know, if I did my Black Templar army now, if it'd taken me a really, really long time to put it together, well, that's not even true. Like, my Black Templars, they have changed a lot. They have changed a lot. You know, out of all my armies which have changed the most throughout 8th edition and 9th edition, it's been my Black Templars. The army itself has stayed the same. You know, the army itself has stayed the same, but the unit options around it have changed a lot. The codex has changed a lot, but my Black Templars have actually, it's an interesting one. It's almost like an exception that proves the rule, right? Because my Black Templars, I built them in a very specific way. I built them as a black tide, and I knew that better or for worse, that would always be kind of, you know, that would always be okay. You know, Scouts and Marines are always going to do all right, and, you know, in case of Black Templars, you can mash them together. That's great. And I think that would kind of be my advice to anyone who's starting out in 40k now. More so than ever, just collect the stuff that you think looks cool and that you like and that you think is awesome. If you think guard tanks are just the absolute bee's knees, you know what? Go for it. Go and get 20 Lehman Russes. Do it. If you think that a Tyranid genes, you know, sort of a swarm list with loads and loads of little bugs and, you know, no big bugs, if you think that's cool, right now it might not be competitive, but just do it, because everything will change. You know, you're likely your army will be, you know, will be fine. What I would argue is it's very difficult now to chase the meta. It's very difficult to do that. If you're going to build and paint the models yourself. We are going off on a bit of a tangent here, but you know, it's very difficult to chase the meta these days, guys, because by the time, if you're the kind of guy that likes to buy them, build them, and paint them to a good standard so you can be proud of them when you put them on the tabletop, by the time you've done that, there's a really good chance that it's just going to be gone again. So one of the reasons that I, you know, look at, you know, taking this tangent just off a little bit further, one of the reasons that I've been really doubling down on my pure infantry tactics recently, guys, is because I need, you know, I need to learn some consistency in my guard army. And it's also a bit like the meta may change around us, but at least my army will stay the same. And no matter what happens in the meta around me, if I know my army really, really well, then I'll be good. And that would, I think, there's definitely this meta chasing aspect, guys. Definitely a meta chasing aspect, and there is always the top tier lists and this, that, and the other. However, there's an old adage in 40k which is there's two kinds of player to fear. There's the player that constantly net lists and takes the best army, and never has the same army twice. That's like your current Space Marine Codex. You fear Space Marines, right? They've always got the best shit, right? Always got the awesome new goodies. They've always got the new best rules. Everyone, even after many hits with the nerf bat, people still fear going up against Space Marines. And I don't use that word lightly. People genuinely don't. They're always like, oh, Marines. They've almost been tainted with the Tau taint, you know, where Tau was so powerful for a while. People to this day still moan about facing off against Tau. Alright? To this day, and they're not very good. That's the first kind of player. It's the first kind of army. Okay? But there's another kind of player. Okay? The guy who's had the same Chaos Space Marine army for the last 20 years. Who knows exactly how to pilot that list. Who knows exactly what each unit in his army is capable of achieving. So he never misplays a rule. He never misplaces a unit. He always allocates the exact amount of resources to achieve an objective on the board. And he always does it, and he beats people who he has no right to beat, but he does because he knows his list. Okay? That second kind of player is it's very rare to come across someone. So sometimes you come across people who are a bit like that. I would say I'm like 50% that guy. You know, like, I know guard, I know what infantry squads can do, I have a natural thing for just using pure infantry, blah, blah, blah. But I've lost my edge a little bit with trying those different tactics out recently in different armies. But I still, you know, I still got it a bit. I still got it. But an example I would use this, and this is how I want to sign the video off, you know, on a positive note, right? A positive note, because this is not a salty video, guys, and I hope that there's no salt that's come across, right? I went to this was before Marines had their buffs. Okay, this was in the first 8th edition Marine Codex when they were considered poor. Okay. One of my friends who's been on this channel more than once turned up with his Imperial Knight army. This was at an event. This was at a tournament. First game of the tournament. And this guy's army was placed to win the event. Okay, he's a good player, and this army is a good army. And it was when you could take 4 knights, and it's when you could choose between the 3 knights and some extra little dudes, or the 4 knights and fewer little dudes. And he was the one that was pioneering the 4 knights with few support units. Okay, and it was a whole thing when the knights go down, but they can get back up, and you can use CP to help them get back up. So knight, almost impossible to kill knights. And it's a really good story, this one, actually. First game of the tournament, he faces off against a Space Marine player, and we all think he faces Space Marines. Remember, guys, this was before Space Marines were good. Okay, this is when they were considered almost bottom tier. They were at very least bottom middle, and everyone looks at the army and they're like, oh, he's got a squad of Terminators, a squad of Assault Terminators. He hasn't even got like Guilliman, I don't think. He might have had Guilliman, but I think he had Calgar instead. And it was just a really classic Marine army. And we were like, and we all sort of said to him, oh, that's an easy first, you jammy buggy, that's an easy first one for you. We already thought you were going to win this event. You jammy bastard. 20 minutes later, Matt comes over to me like, oh, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, you've won your game already? Oh, no, I lost. You lost your game in 20 minutes, but you've got the best list here. Yeah, don't know what happened really. The guy just knew what he was doing. Yeah, just lost. And it was literally a case of a tournament player who knew exactly what he was doing, but he was pioneering a new list that he'd come up with that he wasn't as familiar with, facing off against an army which wasn't seen a lot of the tournament scene, but the guy knew exactly what he was doing. And the reason, and I don't know the exact specifics of why Matt lost, I didn't get into it, but I can tell you it was something on the lines of the guy killed one of Matt's knights in the shooting phase, and then he got back up, because you get back up in that phase. But then he got smacked back down in the combat phase. So the knight stayed down, but this happened twice. So 2 knights got taken down, but 1 got taken down again properly. And so essentially, I think Matt lost 2 knights in turn 1, or by the end of turn 1, it was 2 knights, because he lost 1 in his phase when he got a turn 1 charge on these Assault Terminators, no one was running Assault Terminators at the time, so no one really appreciated, oh, they've all got a 3-up invuln save, that's really cool. So the guy just made a bunch of 3-up invuln saves, apothecated 1 back, and then just smacked a knight to death, because knights didn't get invuln saves in combat. So the knight goes down, because you can fight twice. Oh, that was it. Maybe did the knight go down, and then Matt got it back up, and then the guy used the fight twice stratagem, and it was the end of the phase, so he put it back down again. It was something like that, but basically, after both players had turn 1, the guy with the awesome tournament net list knights had lost 2 knights and couldn't win the game. And the Ultramarine player with his fun list. And when you chat to this guy, he was just like, oh, well, I've always had Marines, I just haven't bothered changing. Have you been to many events? Oh, I go to a couple a year. Oh, how many years you play Warhammer? 10 or 15, I don't really know. So this guy had literally just used the same army for 15, 20, 10, 15 years. And he just knew. And even though it was 8th, it was a new thing. He knew Assault Terminators can do this. They can handle it. So put those out front, blah, blah, blah. And so no one was taking big blocks of 10 Assault Terminators. This guy, Johnny Rambo list. That's what it was. It was a Johnny Rambo list. So there you go, guys. And so whole point of this video, sort of, we're rounding it all off, we're summarising it, is don't worry, being jealous of Marines is not the right attitude to have, because actually they get so much stuff all the time. It's almost impossible to keep up with it. I know multiple players who have got Marines. My own brother, Scholar Progenium, has struggled to upload any content recently because there's almost been too much content to put up. Okay, when you've got a full-time job and that kind of stuff, it's difficult to keep up with all that kind of stuff. So the answer to that if you are a Marine player who is struggling and you've got so much stuff going on, or if you're a player that's jealous of these people, don't. Just collect. It's a simple message. It's one that's old as time, that is more relevant in 9th edition than it ever has been before. Just collect the stuff that you like and get good with the stuff that you have. Because if you do that, and you just stick with it, and you just add the stuff, and you just use the stuff that you like and you love, you will actually do really, really well. And I have first-hand tournament experience of seeing that happen to someone, and I am normally that bastard that turns up with the suboptimal list that somehow manages to win. Back in 6th and 7th edition, when Invisible Wolf Stars, Invisible Death Stars were all over the place, I was the bastard that turned up with the Pure Infantry Guard that had no right to win. But every single time I used to go in against those Wolf Guard lists, Invisible Wolf Stars, Invisible Beast Stars, and I used to come out of that battle and I would win. And the Scream Star, Wolf Star, Demon Star, Beast Star, all these things. Back in the day, and I beat them all when I was at my best in my tournament, and that's not me, breaking my arm, jerking myself off. I was the guy that was so familiar with my own list that I could take on people that weren't as familiar but who had more powerful lists. And that's how you want to be, guys. That's how you want to be. So that's the end. That's the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Moral of the story is just collect the crap that you love, because if you get good with that stuff, it is possible to win. It is. I've done it. I've seen people do it. No, my last story, because I know we got on a tangent. Last one. There used to be something you could do in 7th edition, guys. I know we're using a few old examples, but it's still, still old but gold. There used to be a list that you could take when you were Space Marines called a Gladius detachment. And what that allowed you to do is, if you took a particular format for your army, all your dedicated transports were free, which meant that you could turn up to a 2,000 point battle, or back in the day it was 1,850 point battle, and you would have an additional 500 to 1,000 points of stuff. Okay? You got all your tactical squads, all your upgrades, everything, and then you got like 10 free transports as well. Crazy, right? Those are the crazy times of 7th edition. 9th isn't that bad yet. My brother, with his battered 3rd edition Tau army, the same army he has had, the only 2 new models he's added to it is 1 Ghost Kill and 1 Riptide. The rest of it is the same bloody crisis suits and stealth teams and fire warriors and hammerheads. Went up against this army and beat it, because my brother knew exactly what he was doing with his Tau. Exclusively, pretty much through 6th and 7th, my brother used his Tau at tournaments. Almost, he used a bit of Blood Angels, but almost exclusively he used his Tau. Okay, so when he came up against the list, he just demolished it, because the guy he was playing against didn't know what he was doing. He got on that list. My brother knew exactly what he was doing, and he beat someone who he basically had a 2,000 point list, and they basically had a 3,000 point list. And he absolutely smashed them. Okay, so it is doable. You see it time and time again. These myths, these legends of these players that can beat people that they have no right to beat, but they know their army, they exist for a reason. They're not just folklore, they're not just tales. They exist for a reason, because they can be done, and we've seen it consistently done in competitive play. So, positive, new, sort of new year, post-Christmas message. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. You know what I would love? I'd love to see some comments of people down in the comment section below who have seen those old grognards. Those old grognards take on, who have used the same army for 10 years. Those long beards, those venerable old players who have used the same army forever, who are able to beat those young, not sometimes young, but just new, crazy meta player lists and games. I'd love to hear some tales of those down in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.